We're set to get the latest read on the employment picture in this country with the release of the January jobs report. That's at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. 158,000 jobs are expected to be added, while the unemployment rate is projected to hold at a 50-year low, 3.5%. Now, that jobs added number would be a dip from the average monthly increase of 176,000 last year and an increase on average of 223,000 in 2018. That potential drop would come as we move closer to the presidential election in November. Joining me with more, Managing Director of Economic Policy for the Center for American Progress, Andy Green, and Senior Fellow at the National Taxpayers Union, Mattie Duppler. She is also the President of Forward Strategies. Andy, I will start with you this morning. It is interesting as we look at these jobs numbers. Yes, the average monthly gains are falling over time. But I suppose that's also to be expected when you've got an unemployment rate at 3.5%, no?
Sure. No, that's absolutely right. And I think the key here is that we do have a slowing economy. In particular, we've had problems in the Midwest where unemployment, places like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, has actually been rising thanks to the manufacturing recession that has been going on there, or at least the very significant slowdown in manufacturing. And wage growth has been really quite poor overall, and it ticked up a little bit last year, but it looks like it's slowing down again to really very poor levels. So what this says about the economy is it continues to sort of chug along, but the gains are going to those at the top, as after-tax profits in the S&P 500 are record highs, and working families are not seeing the benefits in terms of their wages and earnings.
You know, Mattie, as we look forward here into 2020, we often think about the economy and what that means for an incumbent president. When the economy is strong, that often means pretty good things for an incumbent president. The economy has started to slow. Growth has started to slow here a bit, but we also have a bit of a sort of fumble, perhaps, with the Democratic Party, at least with the technological problem in Iowa with the caucuses. No real clear front runner yet. I mean, what do you make of sort of the economic picture and what it means for the election potential going forward?
Right. It's not just a technological problem in Iowa. It is a vision problem that Democrats have. Without a front runner, there are competing visions that Democrats are trying to sell to the American public. And frankly, it's going to be a hard sell for them. This week, we saw a lot of economic data that, yes, over the last half of last year, we saw manufacturing slow down, but that may not be the case anymore. On Monday, we saw that manufacturing is actually in expansion for the first time since July. Private ADP payroll numbers indicated that was going to be, at least we had a higher surprise to the upside earlier this week with 291,000 jobs added. I think we will see a strong jobs number, and that will continue to bolster the Trump campaign's pledge to the American people. As we move into the rest of the year, it's true that we may see fewer jobs added each month simply because the economy and the labor market continues to tighten a little bit more as so many people get pulled off the sidelines. But really what we should be looking at is heading into this summer. Around July and June is typically when people's opinions about the economy start to crystallize ahead of an election. Now, that's going to be before Democrats reach their convention in July. So the Trump campaign has a lot of runway here to continue to herald strong economic data, and Americans are feeling it. We saw from Gallup this week that Americans feel better off now about their finances. 59% of the country feels pretty good. 74% of the country thinks they're going to feel even better next year, which is the highest number we've had on record from that survey. So I think that Americans right now feel good about their economic circumstances, and the president, I think you'll certainly see, will continue to emphasize that as we head closer and closer to the election.
So, Andy, if that's true, and if Americans do feel good about their economic circumstances, how are Democrats going to go up against that? What is their argument for why choosing a Democratic candidate would be better for this country if you're voting with your pocketbook?
Well, 2 points I'd like to point out, which is that the overwhelming amount of GDP in this country votes in places that are blue. And Democrats have been winning those votes for a long time. So the fact that the national numbers are looking good says as much about blue Democratic governors and the local state policies where we've seen minimum wages go up and other pro-working family policies as does about does about places that are really going to be the swing states where people continue to be struggling. Farm bankruptcies are really through the roof, et cetera. This gets to my second point, which is everything Donald Trump has been doing has been to make the economy worse. This economy, to the extent that it is still performing, is in spite of what President Trump is doing, whether it be resisting raising the minimum wage, deregulating the financial sector, providing massive tax cuts that do not benefit the working families, but go to those at the very top, a trade war that is harming manufacturing in the Midwest. So all these things, when Democrats are able to actually not be talking about each other, but when they when they turn their sort of economic messaging fire fully onto the facts and onto President Trump, I think you will start to see that narrative move dramatically.
There's still so much more to talk about here, but we have quite a busy show. Mattie and Andy, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have to leave it here, but please come back and join us again soon.
Thank you.
Uber shares are